Hello and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. We've got a pretty decent show for you this week. I think it's decent. Only time will tell for you, but we hope you enjoy. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest, the podcast that knows no bounds. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. I don't know what that bit was about the podcast that knows no bounds, as my attempt to be mildly edgy, I suppose. I won't do it again. We've got a pretty good show for you today, this week. It's definitely not a bad show. I hope it's not a bad show. I guess it's a matter of opinion. Right at the top of the show, I wanted to talk about spontaneous human combustion. There's a story later on in the show about spontaneous human combustion. But earlier in the week, I had been thinking about spontaneous human combustion. I'm going to say it so many times, it's just going to be annoying. It'll just become white noise. So earlier in the week I was thinking about spontaneous human combustion, and just how I haven't heard about it in the news in a long time. It seemed to be an older type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Occurrence? I don't know. But you'd hear about it on those weird shows like In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. That was a show that explored the paranormal, supernatural mysteries. And that would be a subject on the show, spontaneous human combustion. So yeah, I decided to do a little bit of research, nothing too involved, basically Wikipedia. And I'm going to read the last two recorded instances of spontaneous human combustion. Here's the second to last. In December 2010, the death of Michael Faraday, a 76-year-old man in County Galway, Ireland, was recorded as spontaneous combustion by the coroner. The doctor, Kieran McLaughlin, made this statement at the inquiry into the death. This fire was thoroughly investigated, and I'm left with the conclusion that this fits into the category of spontaneous human combustion, for which there is no adequate explanation. It's simple enough. That doesn't say exactly what happened, where he was, or whatever. So this is the most recent reported case of apparent spontaneous human combustion. Occurred in the early afternoon of September 2017 in Tottenham, North London, when a 70-year-old pensioner, John Nolan, from County Mayo in Ireland, appeared to spontaneously burst into flames while walking in the street. Imagine seeing that. You're walking down the street and some guy just bursts into flames. Some passers-by tried to help him at the scene, and he was airlifted to a hospital where he died the next day, having suffered severe third-degree burns on 65% of his body. At the time, investigators were unable to establish a reason for this incident and his death, which was treated as unexplained. An inquest was opened at North London Coroner's Court in March 2018 to further examine the circumstances of his death. The coroner concluded that Nolan accidentally set fire to himself while lighting a cigarette, and the cause of death was given as accidental ignition of clothing. I'd like to believe it was spontaneous human combustion myself. Yeah, I've just been thinking about that. Spontaneous human combustion. It's just interesting. I'd like to see that's the way humans go. That's the way that we die. That we get to a certain age range, and the chemicals in our body become volatile, and we just ignite, And that's our expiration. Maybe not the most pleasant expiration, not the most pleasant way to go, but it would be something. So that later on in the show there'll be a case history, I guess, if you will, about a spontaneous human combustion case. The other thing I wanted to talk about with Halloween coming up, I just found this interesting. I didn't feel like covering it on the show, but just to do it here in the monologue. You can be arrested. Children over 12 can face jail time for trick-or-treating in some towns. That's the headline of the story. There seems to be a legal limit to jail for dressing up and going door to door looking for candy. In Chesapeake, Virginia, where anyone over the age of 13 who is caught trick-or-treating can be sent to jail for up to 6 months and fined. Seems a little excessive. In Newport News, Virginia, kids can trick-or-treat until 7th grade or until they turn 12. After that, it's a misdemeanor. And several North Carolina cities have similar legal restrictions for 12 to 13-year-olds, as well as 9 p.m. curfews for all. Sounds like a real bummer to have Halloween in these towns. Why even bother celebrating anything? And in parts of South Jersey, the curfew is 7 p.m., with kids in Upper Deerfield Township also being told 12 is the official cutoff. Well, I guess, they don't mean 12 a.m. I thought they were talking about time, not age. So yeah, you can be, if you're a child and you're doing childish things like trick-or-treating on Halloween, you can be sent to the slammer. I think that's a bit excessive. Anyway, I just wanted to inform everyone of those things: spontaneous human combustion and going to jail for trick-or-treating. Anyway, we have a pretty good show. It's not too bad. We start out with some dumb criminal stories, and then things get kind of weird, as usual. Got a story on Chernobyl, vacation packages. What else is there? The spontaneous combustion. The Vatican is launching their own Fitbit. It's got a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read it all here. So with that, I say check out the show notes at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can email us at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at otheritemspod and Twitter at otheriitems. Visit us at those places. Send a message to us at those places. We'd appreciate it. So with that, let's start the show, shall we? I think we shall. And here we go. Man charged after he is accused of attacking roommate, believing him to be a vampire. From kitsapsun.com. Believing his roommate just admitted to being a vampire, a 40-year-old Bremerton man attacked him with a metal rod, poking him in the upper left side of his chest. The suspect was charged Monday in Kitsap County Superior Court with third-degree assault, a felony. Kitsap County Sheriff's deputies were called Sunday at about 7 p.m. to the 6400 block of Grand Pine Loop after the roommate ran to a neighbor's house to use the phone. The roommate said the suspect accused him of being a vampire, threatened to kill him, and struck him in the chest with the metal rod, according to court documents. The roommate said he feared for his life because the suspect has severe mental health issues and is much bigger physically. A deputy wrote in court documents that the roommate had visible swelling on the upper left side of his chest. Using a public announcement system to no avail, deputies made numerous announcements ordering the suspect to exit the residence. Deputies eventually forced their way into the suspect's room and took him into custody along with the rod. The suspect told deputies he had confronted the roommate about being a vampire, and when the roommate admitted to it, the suspect said he was going to stab him in the heart with a wooden stake. However, the suspect claimed the roommate charged him. The suspect denied assaulting the roommate, but said he pushed the roommate away while holding the rod, and the rod may have touched him. The suspect's brother told deputies he witnessed the confrontation, and when asked if he was a vampire, the roommate jokingly said, "Is that what the kids are calling me these days?" The suspect did not find it funny, the brother said, and took the joke as an admission. When the roommate refused to leave, the suspect said something to the effect of, "I'm going to kill you, vampire," a deputy wrote in charging documents. He then took the metal rod and poked the roommate with it in the chest, a deputy wrote. So was he a vampire or not? Oh well. Deputies ask man to quit calling about his stolen marijuana. From NBCnews.com. Authorities say a Florida man, repeatedly called 911 to report that his roommate had stolen his marijuana. The deputy for the Pasco County Sheriff's Office posted a Twitter response to the man's call Saturday night. "Stop calling." Deputy Neil Salva says in the Twitter video that he called the man back to tell him to quit contacting the sheriff's office about his stolen marijuana. Salva recorded the video as part of the agency's #TweetAlong program, which allows viewers to get a behind-the-scenes look at the police work by the deputies. Recreational marijuana use remains illegal in Florida. If anybody should have legal marijuana, I think it's the Floridians. Maybe shit will just mellow out. Or maybe things will get crazier. I don't know. See what happens. Give the whole state a joint. See what happens. A sheriff's office spokesman says no charges were filed against the caller. Sheriff's Office Communications Director Kevin Dahl said Tuesday they just wanted the man to stop calling about the stolen weed. We haven't had a good stripper story in a while, and I'd say this is a good stripper story. Feuding strippers. Stripper arms herself with BB gun after fight with rival dancer, police say. From clickorlando.com. Another Florida story. An exotic dancer is accused of pointing a BB gun at her bosses after getting in a fight with another dancer on Wednesday, according to the Daytona Beach Police Department. Amber Colquitt, 28, told police she was dancing on stage at Pinup's Gentlemen's Club on International Speedway Boulevard, and customers were throwing money at her. Everything just screams classy about this so far. But another dancer who wasn't performing at the time was collecting the cash, the report said. The two dancers got involved in a verbal altercation, so management stepped in and resolved it, saying that the other dancer wouldn't be punished because she only took $3, although Colquitt insisted it was $25, according to the affidavit. Colquitt said she was angry at that point, so she got dressed and went to leave, but then saw the other dancer performing on stage, so she took the money that performer was receiving, authorities said. The two dancers got into a physical altercation with a security guard, and a manager had to break up, according to the report. Colquitt told police that the security guard hit her as he was picking her up to take her out of the club, so she yelled at him and the manager. "Yeah, I hit you. What are you going to do about it?" the security guard said, according to the report. Oops, just slammed my hand on my desk. Just slammed my knuckle right into my desk. I don't know if you heard that or not. Hurt. Where was I? At that point, Colquitt went to her friend's vehicle and retrieved a BB gun that she had used during a photo shoot earlier that day, police said. She wrapped the BB gun in a jacket, then went back over to where the two men were standing. She told police that she believed she could shoot the security guard in self-defense because he hit her. I don't think self-defense works that way. That's revenge. That's not self-defense. You want to hit females? I got something for you. You still want to hit females? Colquitt told the security guard. At that point, the manager pulled out his gun and told Colquitt to drop her weapon and get down on the ground. Colquitt was charged with aggravated assault without intent to kill. Sounds like a fun place to work. Never mess with a grumpy old man. From foxnews.com. North Dakota man, 68, charged with assaulting 9-year-old boy after being hit by snowball. A 68-year-old North Dakota man. I don't know. I think I got a touch of the stupid today. Let's barrel through this. A 68-year-old North Dakota man is accused of shouting profanities and throwing rocks at a group of children in retaliation for being hit with a snowball before pushing a 9-year-old boy into a truck and smashing his face into the ground. Douglas resident Gordon Van Hassel, 68, is charged with felony aggravated assaults of a victim under the age of 12, the Grand Forks Herald reported Monday. According to charges, Van Hassel was walking his dog by a group of children having a snowball fight when he was apparently hit. Van Hassel later claimed the kids were harassing him, so he chased them, catching the 9-year-old, who he allegedly pushed to the ground and repeatedly kicked. The boy later told authorities he was afraid for his life and passed out during the attack. An adult reportedly carried the boy home by sled before he was taken to a hospital in Minot. The assault left him in pain and unable to walk on his left leg, according to a Ward County Sheriff's deputy. Van Hassel was being held at Ward County Jail. He was scheduled to appear in court for arraignment Thursday. He faces up to 10 years in prison if he's convicted. And it is a Fox News site, and they do have comments at the bottom. Don't bother. I'm looking at them now. I always do this. Jesus Christ. People are sticking up for the old guy. I mean, was throwing the snowball at him an accident, or was it on purpose? Because if it was on purpose, wouldn't that be considered assault also? It's a fair point. Here's a bit of a nightmare to live with. Family's basement flooded with animal blood in Iowa. From cleveland19.com. An Iowa family of 7 has been forced from their home over health concerns after their basement filled with nearly 5 inches of animal blood, fat, and bones as a result of a drainage from a meat wholesaler and butcher shop next door. Nick Listina and his family had lived next door to Dahl's Custom Meat Locker in Bagley, Iowa for 10 years without issue. But as they were getting ready to sell the home, their basement was flooded with animal blood. Many of the belongings in the basement were destroyed, including a bed they were saving for their 1-year-old son. I was shocked at first, but I had a pretty good idea where it came from, Listina said. And there's a photo of their basement on the website here. From the photo, it actually looks like really nice stained wood floors, but that's not what it is. Listina says his neighbors were dumping hog and cattle remains down a floor drain, which is connected to his pipes, so the remains ended up in his basement. He immediately reported the incident to the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Nobody wants to see that, smell that. I wouldn't want for anybody to have that in their house, Listina said. Officials confirmed the substance in Listina's basement was animal blood, fat, and bones. The Department of Natural Resources contacted the Iowa Department of Health due to potential health hazards. They told us concurrently we shouldn't stay in the house because of the biohazard, Listina said. The department recommended the family of 7 live somewhere else while the house is cleaned. Listina says the meat locker has not been non-compliant in helping cover any costs. They haven't reached out at all. They haven't taken any accountability for it. They say it's not their fault and told me, good luck. If I want anything to do with it, it's on my dime and my schedule, Listina said. I definitely don't have thousands of dollars sitting around to throw at this. The meat locker owners have since apologized for the ordeal and are planning on paying for the cleanup, as they should. We're taking responsibility for it. It wasn't our fault. We didn't intentionally put the blood down there. We didn't want this to happen. We feel for them. I'd be just as mad as they are in their shoes, co-owner Caitlin Dahl said. That was a quick change of tune, I guess. The state is continuing to investigate the matter. The meat locker was told to stop discharge until a permanent solution can be put in place. I really wouldn't wish this on anybody, but all I could do is keep moving forward and try to take care of the problem, Listina said. The Listina family says they plan to press charges if the meat locker continues to ignore their request for help. So the article keeps going back and forth between the meat locker not doing anything to the meat locker doing something, and then the meat locker not doing anything again. There is a statement from the meat locker on Facebook. I'm not going to bother reading it. That's pretty much what's in the article. You can read it if you want. Check the show notes, www.otheritemsofinterest.com, if you're interested. And I think we're going to call it a day on this one. The following article comes from newzealandherald.co.nz. Headline reads, Mother of 44 kids banned from having any more children. 44 kids. I think that's too many kids. A mother who has given birth to 44 children has been banned from having any more. Miriam Nabatanzi from Uganda was married off at the age of 12 and gave birth to her first set of twins a year after that. 5 more sets of twins followed that first, as well as 4 sets of triplets and 5 sets of quadruplets. And I did the math. It all adds up to 44. The 39-year-old woman was abandoned by her husband 3 years ago and has been supporting her surviving 38 children alone. The family lives in deep poverty. She lives in 4 cramped houses with her children in a village surrounded by coffee fields. Doctors have now banned Batanzi from having any more children. The mother of 44 says a doctor told her he had cut my uterus from inside. Is that the right medical lingo for this? Is that what the doctor said? For real? I guess that's no better than getting your tubes tied, but anyway. Over the course of the years, doctors found that Batanzi had unusually large ovaries. She was advised that birth control pills could lead to health issues in her case. Gynecologist Dr. Charles Kigundu from Uganda says the mum's fertility is likely to be hereditary. Her case's genetic predisposition to hyperovulate, releasing multiple eggs in one cycle, which significantly increases the chance of having multiple births, he said, quoted by The Sun. It is always genetic. Nabatanzi has lost 6 children. Her last child died during childbirth and was part of her sixth set of twins 3 years ago. Shortly after, she was abandoned by her husband. What's that guy's story? You can't just walk out on 44 kids. That's rough. You gotta be a special kind of bastard. I have grown up in tears. My man has passed me through a lot of suffering, she said in an interview. Well, maybe she's better off without him. All my time has been spent looking after my children and working to earn some money. She does whatever job she can do to earn money for her children, including hairdressing, event decorating, selling scrap metal, brewing local gin, and selling herbal medicine. Her eldest child, Ivan Kabuka, is now 23 and dropped out of high school because his mom could not afford it. Mom is overwhelmed. The work is crushing her. We help where we can, like in cooking and washing, but she still carries the whole burden for the family. I feel for her, he said. 12 of the children sleep on metal bunk beds in just one room. The other children sleep on shared mattresses and some on the dirt floor. Everyone helps around at home, and a roster nailed to the wall divides the duties. According to the mom, the family can go through 25 kilograms of maize flour in one day. The mother says she just wants her children to grow up and live happy lives. I started taking on adult responsibilities at an early age, the mother said. I have not had joy, I think, since I was born. Well, we just nosedived into a bummer of a show. I got nothing. I'm sure as the children get older, it'll make things easier. I'm not one to give advice on this at all. It's not going to stop me, but I'm in no position to give advice on 44 children. Holy shit. I've always been interested in end-of-time cults. Just groups of people waiting for the end of days. This story involves a family, not an entire cult, but headline reads, Dutch family waiting for the end of time, found in secret room, from BBC.com. A man of 58 and 6 young adults aged 18 to 25 were living at a farm in the province of Drenthe. The family were found after the eldest of the children ordered beer at a bar in the nearby village of Runervold. He then told staff he needed help. We found 6 people living in a small space in the house which could be locked but wasn't a basement, police said in a statement late on Tuesday. The older man has been arrested. According to the family, he is the father of the 6 children, say police. It was not clear whether they had been there voluntarily. The eldest son was not there at the time. Local reports describe the man as a handyman called Joseph B., who was originally from Austria. I've never seen anything like it, local mayor Roger de Groot told the reporters. He revealed that some of the family had not been registered locally and also indicated that the 58-year-old was not the father. The public broadcaster said that the family had been living in isolation waiting for the end of time. Bar owner Chris Westerbeek described how a man had come in, ordered 5 beers, and drunk them. Drunk them? Drank them? I don't know. Then I had a chat with him, and he revealed he had run away and needed help. Then we called the police, he said. He added he had long hair, a dirty beard, wore old clothes, and looked confused. He said he'd never been to school and hadn't been to the barber for 9 years. He said he had brothers and sisters who lived at the farm. He said he was the oldest and wanted to end the way they were living. Officers visited the remote farmhouse and carried out a search. They discovered a hidden staircase behind a cupboard in the living room that led down to a secret room where the family was housed. Runervold is a village with a population of less than 3,000. The farm is outside the village and is accessible by a bridge over a canal. The farm, which is part hidden behind a row of trees, also has a large vegetable plot and a goat. A neighbor told Dutch media that he had only ever seen one man on the farm, no children, and that there had been animals on the ground, such as geese and a dog. The local postman said he had never delivered a letter there. It's actually pretty strange now I come to think about it, he told Al Jamin Dagblad news website. People in the area tweeted the news, and one reporter posted images of the farmhouse saying he had been asked to keep at a distance. Police in Drenthe confirmed that a 58-year-old man had been arrested and was under investigation after refusing to cooperate. Yesterday, someone reported to us that they were worried about the living conditions of people in a house in, this is a good one, Buitenhuizenweg in Ruinerwold. They wrote in a tweet, "We went there." We still have many unanswered questions, they said, adding that all scenarios were open and their investigation was fully underway. The farmhouse and the surrounding grounds were cordoned off. Some reports suggest that the 58-year-old had suffered a stroke and had been confined to his bed. It was unclear what had happened to the children's mother, although the mayor said she had died some time ago. Strange story, not a lot of details. I would have liked more. I hope to see an update on this story sometime to get maybe some quotes from the other adult children being kept in the secret room. This seems kind of dumb, but I'm going to read it anyway. From CNN.com, Vatican launches $110 click-to-pray wearable rosary. It's like a Catholic Fitbit. The Vatican announced the launch of the click-to-pray e-rosary Wednesday. October is the month of the rosary. The e-rosary is an app-driven device that can be worn as a bracelet. To activate it, all you have to do is make the sign of the cross, similar to how Catholics begin praying the rosary. Once activated, the wearer can choose between 3 different options to pray. There's the standard rosary, a contemplative rosary, or a thematic rosary, which will be updated every year. The device shows the user's progress throughout each prayer and keeps track of each rosary completed. See, it's like a Fitbit for Catholics. The interactive device is a push from the church to reach tech-savvy millennials and Gen Z. I think the younger generations are moving away from religion in droves. Good luck, though. It serves as a tool for learning how to pray the rosary for peace in the world, according to a news release from the Vatican. The project, part of the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network. I don't know why I find that funny. The Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network. Sounds important. Sounds powerful. It brings together the best of the Church's spiritual tradition and the latest advances of the technological world, the Vatican said. And as stated earlier, the e-rosary is available to buy now for $110. There is a link on the website for the buy now. It takes you to an Acer website. If you are so interested in buying one of these for yourself or a loved one. I don't know. From apnews.com, Colorado woman indicted in attempted sale of 1920s fetuses. Yes. A Colorado woman is suspected of trying to sell 3 human fetuses from the 1920s and a fetal skeleton online has been indicted in California on charges of violating U.S. law prohibiting the transfer of human fetal tissue. This seems ridiculous. Emily Suzanne Kane, 38, pleaded not guilty to charges Tuesday. The case had been delayed until November 20th in the U.S. District Court of San Francisco. The fetuses are believed to be from stillborn infants from the 1920s. Kane attempted in October 2018 to mail a package from Cannon City in central Colorado to an address in the United Kingdom. The package, labeled school teaching aids and T-shirts, caught the attention of U.S. Postal Service workers who noticed there was no signature on a customs form certifying the package did not contain dangerous contents. An X-ray of the package revealed a human-like shape, according to U.S. Customs agents at the San Francisco International Airport cited in the complaint. Kane posted on Facebook that she acquired the fetuses from a university lab collection and was selling them for $20,000 each or altogether. It seems like a pretty penny for some 1920s fetuses. You expect to get newer fetuses for that kind of price, unless it's like wine. Do fetuses age like wine? Is that why it's so much money? I don't know, but I'm going to get back to the article. The specimens were traced to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. University policy calls for specimens that are no longer needed to be cremated and not sold. The university is cooperating with authorities. Kane was first arrested in Fort Collins and released on $5,000 bond with a GPS monitor. And that's that. Well, I did not know you cannot sell fetuses, even if they're from the 1920s. I'm stymied. I'm baffled. I hope they let her off easily with this. How could you possibly know that you couldn't sell fetuses? I mean, it seems like a weird thing to sell, but people collect that kind of shit. I don't know. I just don't know. Good luck, Suzanne, or whatever your name is. If you happen to see HBO's miniseries Chernobyl, you know what kind of hell that power plant went through and the people in it. They've finally opened the control room where all the action happened to tourists. This article comes from livescience.com. Chernobyl's control room is now open to tourists for 5 minutes. That's right, you can visit the control room at Chernobyl, but for 5 minutes because the radiation levels are so high. Tourists can now visit the control room of Chernobyl's Reactor 4, the scene of the world's worst nuclear disaster. But the control room is still highly radioactive and people are required to wear protective gear when inside, according to recent news reports. Ukrainian President Zelensky declared Chernobyl an official tourist attraction in June at the inauguration of a gigantic dome built to contain radioactive material. But Chernobyl has been a tourist destination for far longer, parts of it having been open to the public for nearly a decade. In May, bookings to Chernobyl increased by about 30%, following the release of the popular HBO series of the same name. But Reactor 4 had remained closed off to most of the public, save for a few researchers and cleanup workers. Now Chernobyl tour companies have confirmed that the control room is open to the brave souls who wish to be closer to the scene of the disaster. The control room, which was highly damaged from the explosion, was where the reactor was operated from and where many of the decisions the day the reactor exploded were made. It sits under the new containment arch, but outside of the original sarcophagus that contained the radiation of the reactor itself. The radiation in the room is 40,000 times higher than normal levels, according to Ruppli, a German news agency. Anyone who wishes to visit the site must wear a protective suit, a helmet, and a mask, and limit their visit to 5 minutes. Afterward, visitors are required to undergo 2 radiology tests to measure the amount of radiation they were exposed to. That's typical of most tours in Chernobyl. People must go through radiation checkpoints at the beginning, middle, and end of one-day tours. Tourists are not permitted to wander on their own. They must stay with the tours because of ongoing radiation concerns. Just sounds like a bad vacation. I mean, it's fascinating, Chernobyl, but you're really it feels like you're risking a lot by going there. Radiation is nothing to play with. It's not a plaything, okay? Radiation is not a toy. Other parts of Chernobyl remain off limits, including the machine cemetery in the Rosaka, I think that's how it's pronounced, village, which is where the contaminated machines used during the Chernobyl cleanup were dumped. Exposure to large amounts of radiation can cause tissue damage and acute sickness, as well as increase the risk of cancer. However, Ukrainian officials have deemed the areas that are open to tourists to be safe as long as they follow the rules. And we know how good people are at following rules, right? Right. From cnet.com, world's largest Ouija board materializes in Salem. And this is one that you want to check the show notes for at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. Some really great pictures of this giant Ouija board with giant planchette to go with it, so you can actually play it. Just in time for Halloween, a gigantic Ouija board has found a home in Salem, Massachusetts. Measuring 3,168 square feet and weighing over 9,000 pounds. 9,000 pounds. That's huge. The world's largest Ouija board, known as Ouija-zilla, debuted Saturday via the Talking Board Historical Society in Salem, the infamous site of witch trials back in the 1600s. Ouija-zilla was made using 99 sheets of plywood, covered in 20 gallons of wood stain and paint. It has taken Rick, or Modus Shrek, a year to secretly create this behemoth that will be known as the king of all talking boards. The Talking Board Historical Society posted on Instagram. It is by far the largest board in the world. It is big. To use the board, players ask Ouija-zilla questions and then maneuver a 400-pound planchette using a huge pencil to spell out the answers that some believe come from the spirit world. Ouija-zilla is based on the same design created by William Fuld in 1917 and reproduced in 1967 by Parker Brothers Board Game Company. And there's another picture. There's a picture of the planchette with the giant pencil. Ouija-zilla now holds the record as the world's largest Ouija board, beating out the 2016 record holder, the Grand Midway Hotel in Windber, Pennsylvania, according to Ripley's Believe It or Not website. Imagine that you have like the world record Ouija board, and you have that record for 3 years, and somebody beats you just like that. I wonder how much bigger this new one is compared to the old record holder. Doesn't say. But check out the pictures. They're very interesting. I'll put them up on Twitter and Instagram within the week. How about a mythical lost city? Does that interest you? You find that interesting? I do. From thedailystar.co.uk, mythical lost city of gods discovered in dense Cambodian jungle. A city that experts have spent years searching for has been uncovered in a jungle in Cambodia. The ancient city of Mahendraparvata, which means mountain of Indra, king of gods, was thriving well over 1,000 years ago and is thought to have been the first capital city of the Khmer Empire. But efforts to locate the remains of the mysterious city have been unsuccessful, with scientists even disagreeing on where they should be looking for it. Until now. Very dramatic. Until now. The team used state-of-the-art LiDAR laser scanning techniques to pinpoint the location of the city, which dates back to the 9th century and is located to the northeast of the city of Angkor. Discussing the amazing find, archaeologist Jean-Baptiste Chavance of the Archaeology and Development Foundation in the UK, wrote in a paper, "The mountainous region of Phnom Kulen has to date received strikingly little attention. It is almost entirely missing from archaeological maps, except as a scatter of points denoting the remains of some brick temples." He added, "The ancient Khmer modified the landscape, shaping features on a very large scale: ponds, reservoirs, canals, roads, temples, rice fields, etc. However, the dense forest, often covering the areas of interest, is a main constraint to investigating them." The laser technology the team used meant they were able to look past hundreds of years of dirt and vegetation that now covers the remains of the city. They could then see a huge urban network that spanned 50 kilometers squared across the jungle. Numerous other elements of the landscape connect to this broader network, suggesting the elaboration of an overall urban plan, the team explained. Dams, reservoir walls, and the enclosure walls of the temples, neighborhoods, and even the royal palace abut or coincide with the embanked linear features. I don't know what I just read. But despite its size, the city was not inhabited for very long, with people migrating to terrains that were easier to live in. Damien Evans of the French School of the Far East told the New Scientist, "The city may not have lasted for centuries or perhaps even decades, but the cultural and religious significance of the place has lasted right up until the present day." And here we go with spontaneous human combustion. From the Tampa Bay Times, tampabay.com, "Spontaneous combustion in St. Petersburg? The curious case of Mary Reeser." Before sinking into the overstuffed easy chair in the middle of her St. Petersburg apartment, a widow named Mary Hardy Reeser slipped into a nightgown and popped 2 sleeping pills. Hot summer air drifted through the open windows. It was around 9 p.m. on July 1st, 1951. Reeser's only son, Dr. Richard Reeser, Jr., had just kissed her goodbye after a visit. She was alone for the night and decided to enjoy a cigarette before bed. Reeser, 67, would not be seen alive again. When the landlady, Pansy Carpenter, I'm sorry, that name only struck me funny until now. I read this article twice before, and I read right over Pansy Carpenter, and it didn't strike me as funny, but now it strikes me as funny. Pansy Carpenter. Let's start that sentence over. When the landlady, Pansy Carpenter, tried to deliver a telegram the next morning, the door to Reeser's small apartment on 1200 Cherry Street Northeast was warm and the handle too hot to touch. Inside the charred walls, embers still crackled. Firefighters burst into a soot and smoke-filled apartment. Reeser was gone, and only a pile of black ashes remained. Amid the rubble, police found coil springs from the chair and part of Reeser's backbone. Her left foot sat in the pile, still wearing a black silk slipper. Her skull, reports say, had shrunken to the size of a cup. Firefighters found evidence of extreme heat. Bare candle wicks towered above puddles of melted wax. Smudges of smoke had stained the tops of the walls. Warped electric switches lined the room. Lower down, the walls were clean and the electric switches looked normal. Reeser's newspaper sat untouched. The sheets on her bed were still white. Reeser's story is perhaps the strangest unsolved mystery in Tampa Bay history. The case has been documented in magazine articles, documentaries, and books, but questions remain. How could a woman go up in flames without the rest of the room burning? What could have killed Mary Reeser? Mary Reeser and her husband, Dr. Richard Reeser Sr., hailed from Columbia, Pennsylvania. A few years after her husband died, she moved to St. Petersburg to be near her son and granddaughters. Reeser loved her family, needlepoint and entertaining, but Florida was too hot for her liking, and she missed her friends back in Pennsylvania. Her son could tell she was upset about it on the last day he saw her. She had been too worried about taking a trip back home to eat supper. The pills she took before he left were the only thing in her system. No one quite knew what to make of the case, but there were plenty of ideas. Maybe the blaze was an accident. Maybe it was a lightning strike. Maybe, one Times reader proposed in 1951, Reeser died from spontaneous human combustion. The last theory was the one that spread furthest. Soon the Cinder Woman mystery of St. Petersburg made national headlines. St. Petersburg Police Chief J.R. Reichart received hundreds of theories from amateur detectives. Some claimed that they smelled a strange odor outside Reeser's home. Theorists blamed everything from the fabric of the chair cushion to napalm, phosphorus, and termite bombs. A ball of fire came through the open window and hit her, read one letter. I seen it happen. I seen it happen. Hot damn. There was no clear answer, so Reichert drafted a letter to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Dear Mr. Hoover, he wrote, the fire is too puzzling for the small-town force to handle. Police sent boxes of evidence to the FBI laboratory in D.C., including portions of the apartment rug, smoke samples, rubble from the walls and floor, and segments of the chair. FBI agents spent 3 weeks examining Reeser's mysterious disappearance. Finally, on August 8th, Reichart released a statement to the media, calling it the most unusual case I've seen during my almost 25 years of police work in the city of St. Petersburg. FBI agents found no evidence that suggested lightning had struck Reeser or the building. All of the fuses in the apartment were still intact, and investigators hadn't been able to detect substances that could have started the blaze. Common combustible fluids and accelerants such as alcohol, gasoline, etc. would probably be consumed in such a fire and no trace of them detected afterwards, said Reichart's statement. As for spontaneous combustion, the investigation ruled that out as well. I'm not ruling it out. It's possible that Reeser, drowsy from sleeping pills she took, dozed off in her chair while smoking her evening cigarette. The nightgown she was wearing at the time of her death was made of rayon acetate and could have caught fire from a cigarette ash. Reeser had weighed about 170 pounds. Human fat could have fed a fire that smoldered throughout the evening, allowing hot air and smoke to rise to the top of the room. Mary was a great smoker, Ernestine Reeser, Mary Reeser's daughter-in-law, told the St. Petersburg Times in 1991. The cigarette dropped in her lap. Her fat was the fuel that kept her burning. The floor was cement, and the chair was by itself. There was nothing around her to burn. Investigators decided this kind of accidental death was the most plausible theory, but Wilton M. Krogman, an anthropologist from the University of Pennsylvania, disagreed. Instead of shrinking, Reeser's skull should have exploded, he said. That's pretty metal. Exploding skulls? Excuse me. Then there was the cremation of the body, which would have required several thousand degrees over the course of several hours. I cannot conceive of such complete cremation without more burning in the apartment, Krogman said, according to the York Daily Record. It's now been nearly 70 years since Reeser's mysterious death. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened. We may never have answers. After the FBI investigation trailed off, a portion of Reeser's ashes were buried next to her husband in Pennsylvania. The rest stayed with her offspring in St. Petersburg. Reeser's family once told the St. Petersburg Times they used to feel her presence, at least up until they got rid of her old furniture. That's Grandma again, they used to say when a breeze rolled by. Don't worry, she's nice. So what was it, a cigarette or spontaneous human combustion? I'm still going with the combustion. And here we are with our last story of the show. From Reuters.com, Paris Zoo unveils the blob, an organism with no brain but 720 sexes. 720 sexes. I don't even understand that. How do they identify? Well, let's find out. A Paris Zoo showcased a mysterious new organism on Wednesday dubbed the Blob, a yellowish unicellular small living being which looks like a fungus but acts like an animal. The newest exhibit of the Paris Zoological Park, which goes on display to the public on Saturday, has no mouth, no stomach, no eyes, yet it can detect food and digest it. The blob also has almost 720 sexes, can move without legs or wings, and heals itself in 2 minutes if cut in half. The blob is a living being which belongs to one of nature's mysteries, said Bruno David, director of the Paris Museum of Natural History, of which the zoological park is part. It surprises us because it has no brain but is able to learn, and if you merge two blobs, the one that has learned will transmit its knowledge to the other, David added. The Blob was named after a 1958 science fiction horror B-movie starring a young Steve McQueen, in which an alien life form, the Blob, consumes everything in its path in a small Pennsylvania town. We know for sure it is not a plant, but we don't really know if it's an animal or a fungus, said David. It behaves very surprisingly for something that looks like a mushroom. It has the behavior of an animal. It is able to learn. So this is the thing that's going to take over humanity, this yellow, slimy, mold, fungus, animal, plant thing. It can learn and it can merge with other versions of itself and transmit knowledge. This can't bode well. Well, with that thought, welcome to the end of the show. You can visit us online at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can send us an email at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. You can visit us on Instagram at otheritemspod and on Twitter at otheritems. Just at otheritems. That's it. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We'll message back, unless you're rude. I think we learned a lot today about human combustion, spontaneous human combustion, and weird fungus, and lost cities, and giant Ouija boards. I think for, a free show, you got a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal indeed. Costs you nothing. And this is the entertainment you get. What amazing times we live in. There's such amazing times. If you want music to play, all you have to do is say, cue the music. Hello and welcome to the end of the show. This is our outro music. This is how we end the show every time. Play this little catchy tune, this little number. I've been Jack Zablocki. This has been Other Items of Interest. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.